Just ask me to repeat the question. You're gonna be the one doing most of the talking, hopefully.
All right.
So, anyway, shit, looks like we're live. What's up, everybody? Sorry, we're 5 minutes late. Hopefully, that didn't mess up anybody's schedule or anything like that. But I thought today we talked to Cynthia, who has recently tried the 30-day Carnival challenge. And, I wanted to ask her how her experience has been, why she decided to do it, and, just the usual type of stuff. So anyway, why don't you say hello to everybody, introduce yourself, and your channel, this link to your channel is in the description, but if you want to plug anything else, feel free. So, hello.
Hi, everybody. My name is Cynthia. It's the name of my channel so far. I think I recently nicknamed it to The Health Experience. I think that's way cooler than Cynthia. You can follow me on Instagram. I created a page just to kind of document the 30-day challenge, even though I didn't post a lot of content, but I fully intend on doing more uploads and whatnot. So that's at The Health Experience. And I'm coming to you from Florida. And I embarked on the 30-day challenge, and so far it's been almost a 90-day challenge because I continued, but a lot more loosely. So I would consider this like a hyper carnivore because I eat some fruits maybe twice a week, but I'm still avoiding vegetables.
So wait a minute. You're just give me one second here.
Sure.
So your 30-day challenge has begun roughly 3 months ago?
It started, let's see, it started August 7, October. Okay, no, so we're on the third month now. So it's about 73 days. So it'll be 90 days, I don't know, in a matter of weeks. So yeah.
I wasn't aware of that. I mean, I knew you when you decided to stick with carnivory, but I wasn't aware that you've been eating this way for 3 months now.
Yep. 30-day challenge. I wrapped that up.
Well, all right. So just to kind of backtrack a little bit, or maybe start at the beginning, why did you decide to do this?
Okay. I'm at this point when I started doing this, I wasn't coming with any like major health challenges, but I did have a history. I've had acne, terrible acne, my whole life. I mean, ever since I was, a teenager. And I also had IBS for a couple of years. And now learning about this, how vegetables are bad for us and stuff, and how going carnivore has like done so well for people's bowels. I realized why I got IBS. I got IBS when I was training for like a bikini competition. So I was eating a lot of vegetables. The meal prep, I was doing the meal prepping with a ton of vegetables, like very, a little bit of sweet potato, and then just like chicken and like lean meats and stuff. And about 6 months in to training and eating, I just got IBS. I had terrible diarrhea. Sorry, everybody, TMI. Like terrible, explosive, terrible diarrhea. And stomach cramps in the mornings in particular, and just terrible gas. I mean, it was so bad, like the urgency to go. Like I remember this one time I was driving, I forgot where, I had my dogs in the car, and I just had to pull over at a gas station because I just had this terrible urgency. Like I was just like, it was so bad. Oh my God. And I had terrible stomach cramps. I went to a gastroenterologist like 3 times. Because I just kept going back because I wasn't doing any better. And he just said, like, look, women your age, this was when I was 23, about 5 years ago, it's normal for women to go through an episode of, like, IBS at this particular age. So he said, just wait it out a couple of months, but I did, and nothing happened. I mean, I had IBS for several years. And one of the, so I started troubleshooting with diet, and one of the main things that really helped was eliminating wheat from my diet. So I was gluten-free for a year. But anyway, long story short, because I have like a long history of weird symptoms that were never like diagnosed or tied to any kind of disease. I had like autoimmune type symptoms, but I never got diagnosed with something. So anyway, long story short, I've had a bunch of weird like health issues, and I've always been very health conscious. I've been low carbing and in the low carb space since I was like maybe 14 years old, like since the Atkins craze. My dad's paleo. My mom also like did low carb and lost a ton of weight. My brother did low carb, lost a ton of weight. So I've always been troubleshooting with my health and always seeking optimal health. And I'm really happy to say, I mean, I've never reached a point where I'm just completely like complaint free about everything. You know, I've always had something going on, whether it's like a joint pain or like my hair is falling out or my acne. And I still have some acne. I just came from Oktoberfest, I think I told you, in Munich, and I ate all the things. I ate all the things there, and I have no regrets. I mean, I didn't even suffer that much afterwards. Like I had bratwurst like with bread. I had beer. You know, you can't go to Oktoberfest and not have beer. And I was just really gassy the next day, but I was fine. Like I didn't have any cramps, nothing.
Maybe it was sourdough. Do you know?
I don't know. Well, there's clearly a difference between the bread in Europe and here. I've noticed that because it's not my first time going to Europe, and like I said, when I had IBS here, whenever I noticed that wheat, whenever I ate gluten, I would have runs again for 5 days straight, and I couldn't understand like why that reaction lasted like several days, you know. But anyway, and when I've gone to Europe and I eat bread there, like my stools are fine, you know.
Huh. That's interesting. It could be glyphosate contributing to it. I don't know. I'm no expert. It's just
is that the pesticide?
Yeah, there could be that something that they spray the wheat in US with. I don't know. I really don't know. It could also be a different variety of wheat that maybe some of your ancestors were eating at some point. Who knows, really? But so did you ever get a second opinion? Because it kind of sounds like the first doctor was a bit of a bum.
He was nice. You know, he's just very conventional. He was a very nice guy. Like I liked him. He was also my mom's gastroenterologist. But I mean, I'm glad I didn't get a second opinion. To be honest, like I didn't. You know, what were they going to do? They were going to give me a prescription. You know, like
that's true.
And I didn't end up taking anything, and I found that this was very related to what I was eating. You know, I troubleshooted it. The wheat seemed to help, and
at no point did he ever mention diet, though. Like that could be
no. I mean, I brought that up to him the second visit. I told him, look, I've noticed that I removed gluten and my stools are not as loose. Like there's clearly a difference, and I've tested it several times. It wasn't just like, you know, this one-off thing. And you know, I'm very rigorous with and systematic with how I test things with regards to like my health and diet and all that stuff. So
you keep a journal?
You know what? I'm not that rigorous.
You just have good memory.
yeah. I just go off of memory, and I'm very aware of how I feel. So like when I eat something, you know, I feel the effects of what I ate, you know, after.
Totally.
Kind of like I just keep mental track of that stuff. So when the second visit, when I went back to the doctor, I told him, look, I noticed that there's a substantial difference in my bowel movements when I removed wheat, gluten in general. So not just wheat, but like barley. I mean, I don't eat a lot of barley, but I stopped drinking beer, obviously. And he's like, okay, well, you know, if you feel like that's working for you, then you know, just don't keep eating gluten. And I asked him to test me for like celiac or whatever kind of gluten intolerance tests that they have. And he ran two, I don't know what they're called. He ran like 2 labs for that. She said the first one came out inconclusive. And I was like, okay, well, maybe that means I have an issue with wheat. And the second one came back like negative. He tested for like, I think a part of like the gluten molecule or whatever that most people react to. And that came back inconclusive the first time. And then whatever other part of the protein he measured for or antibodies to the protein, that came out negative. So he's like, no, you know, you're not a celiac. I was like, okay, well, that's great, but I'm still not eating gluten. So that was it. I think I went back one other time. Like I said, I didn't get a prescription or anything from him, and I'm glad because he was convinced that this was just like, you know, a phase that was going to go away in like 3 months, but it took several years for it to dissipate completely. But anyway, so long story short, I've still always kind of had some like weird reactions sometimes, and I just have more diarrhea than normal people. And ever since doing this, like, the first couple of weeks were obviously very, very bizarre with bowel movements and like, a lot of runs and stuff. I'm sorry, I talk a lot about poops. Like, I'm obsessed with gut health. So
It's
fair warning
fine. I don't think
everybody,
anybody
like,
cares.
yeah, I know, like the whole little Bristol stool chart, every number, it's have like serious poop
I'll
issues.
send you samples so you could tell me what's going on.
Oh, actually, I would like to. I saw somebody on Instagram post a biome test. Have you heard of that? Where you send like a stool sample and they tell you like how much like bacterial diversity you have in your
Yeah, I
stool.
don't know if that's exactly the test, but I've heard of tests like that because I
Mhm.
follow Goji Man, so he's always talking about that stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I saw somebody post their results after 90-day
Hmm.
90-day carnivory experiment, and they were like in the 95th percentile of like bacterial diversity, which is like a good thing. So
Wow, yeah.
the results were like awesome, and it's bizarre because like you're only eating meat, so
Do they eat raw meat? Do you know?
no, I don't know. No, I don't remember. I saw this a couple weeks ago already, and it was like a very
Yeah.
brand new Instagram. Uh,
Well,
so
what
that,
a lot of people don't know is that a lot of plants we eat are antimicrobial, like cinnamon, even honey, I believe.
oh,
Uh,
that
a
makes
lot of
very
so
anti.
right, so maybe they're killing some of the good microbes and causing a lot of problems. I'm just speculating, but
Yeah,
a lot of
all of this. I mean, this whole thing that we're doing is we're obviously taking a leap of faith here because there isn't like a lot of there's a lot of there isn't a lot of like hard research on what we're doing.
Mhm,
So
totally.
like we're going based off of like our own experience, and our own experience trumps like what people say. I saw that you recently criticized Rhonda Patrick's uh, interview on Joe
Yeah,
Rogan. And I happen to be a huge fan of her. I like her a lot, and I've been following her for many years.
damn it.
I'm so eager to see one of these people, like Rhonda Patrick, give this a try, um, so that they can really question and really, with sincere curiosity, delve into the mechanisms by which this is working.
Mhm, right.
Um, because I feel like once you experience how good this feels, you're gonna stop trying to like bash it.
And
Um,
obviously, not everybody's the same. And even though we talk a lot of smack about veggies because of our experience, or maybe some of us do, we don't all believe that vegetables are all bad. But
Absolutely.
I'll tell
I'm
you
definitely
this
not.
much.
Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely actually, ever since joining this like carnivore sphere,
Hmm.
I've gotten kicked out of so many groups on Facebook. Um
What
so many
group?
carnivore zero
Oh,
carb health. That one. Two groups on Facebook. And
because
I
you
I
eat
know I've gotten
carbs.
blocks from well, from Zero Carb Health, I believe the moderator's name is Dana. Are you familiar with her?
No, I don't. I'm not on Facebook. Just
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
I mean, she's like she's one of the like long-term carnivore people. She's been doing this for like 10 years.
Hmm.
So she's pretty popular in like the carnivore zero carb community. And I got kicked out of her forum because I explained something called hormesis. I don't know if you've heard of what hormesis is. It's basically like a beneficial stressor.
Hmm.
Uh, and it's and this is something Rhonda Patrick talks about a lot, and the reason why she even promotes like the sprouts, or the little sprouting kit that she's shown on her YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Basically, hormesis, for people who are listening who don't know what that is, it's basically any kind of stressor that upregulates mechanisms for repair in the body. So an example of a hormetic stressor is exercise, for example, right? So exercise is a stressor that makes the body engage repair mechanisms, right? And that helps like fight inflammation, and it's good for your immune system and whatnot. And taking cold showers, that's an example of a hormetic stressor as well. And plants are, of course, the dose makes the poison, right? So if you have too much of a stressor, then you're causing more damage than the body's able to repair, right? So plants are hormetic stressors, and this is something that a lot of people in this community are unaware of, and that's why I'm not completely opposed to like plant consumption.
It
Um,
sounds a little bit like the principle behind vaccines. You introduce a little bit of the bad stuff in order to,
antibodies. Yeah,
yeah,
so that would be, I think that would classify as an example of a hormetic stressor, but this is like when you eat a plant, I mean, unless you have like some autoimmune issue or whatever, your body doesn't create like antibodies, to like
right.
combat plant consumption. But
But there are other mechanisms that help you deal with a little bit of toxicity or whatever it may be that prepares you for maybe a bigger hit of the same
yes,
toxin.
yes,
Okay.
absolutely, yeah. So curcumin is another example of a hormetic stressor. Like curcumin
Hmm.
doesn't have any like vitamins or like minerals that we need or anything like that. That's not why curcumin is healthy. It's because it's actually slightly toxic to us, and that
Gotcha.
regulates repair mechanisms in the body to like fight inflammation and kind of like combat this mild toxin. So, but of course, like I said, the dose makes the poison. You don't want too much of this toxin, because if the rate of damage is greater than the rate of repair, then you create issues, in the body. So that's, I got kicked out of the forum for explaining hormesis because there was this one girl who posted on the forum. She's like, guys, I have a friend that she told me that her acne got better by eating more vegetables. Like, how is it possible that plants could be beneficial to us, right? Because of this dogma in carnivory that like plants are always terrible. Um, so I explained to her, I wrote out this little essay explaining like, oh, this is a possibility. Plants act as hormetic stressors, and maybe for whatever reason, when she ate more vegetables and probably eliminated a ton of other crap, then that's probably why she saw changes in her skin. So Dana, the moderator, she got like kind of upset that I said anything positive about plants, even though at that moment, like I wasn't consuming any plants. And right now, still after like this 2.5 months that I've been doing this, I still have not eaten vegetables. Like, I haven't. Maybe someday I will eventually. Like I'll probably have the sides when I eat at a restaurant sometimes. But right now, like I'm just not interested in reintroducing vegetables. I guess I'm consuming some fruits because I think from an evolutionary biology perspective, it makes sense to consume fruits periodically, even though the fruits we're eating now obviously aren't the fruits we've evolved to eat. But you can also argue that the meat we're eating today isn't the meat that we consumed,
Yeah.
pre-agricultural era. So yeah, I got kicked out of the forum for explaining hormesis. Basically, yeah,
Well,
and
there's definitely a little bit of dogma in the carnivore community, or maybe just specific groups or individuals. But you'll have that, I guess.
yeah, it's just, I mean, the way I see it, I look at everything from like an evolutionary biology perspective, and I'm very
Hmm.
interested in like the human mind and like human behavior. I just see it as like just like sheer tribalism, like I just see like, when I see people arguing so much over like things that they identify with, I just see like tribal apes like ooh, hopping on the ground, like it's just so bizarre. So part of the reason I talk about this quite a bit on my YouTube channel. I've talked about like the dogma and how I think, in order to, if you're really interested in coming upon the truth as close as possible, you have to remove the lens that you look through, you know,
Yeah.
um, because that's the only way you can be a real truth seeker. You have to abandon and not get identified with any particular dogma. And I think yeah, I think it's important to, if you really want to arrive at the truth. With that being said, I'm not, I haven't joined this like bashing veganism like club yet, because I can't deny some experiences that people have had, reversing disease on the vegan diet. I'm definitely convinced it's not something people should do long term, but there are people who have, we don't have data on this, right? People who have cured their cancers with veganism, but we also don't have like data on our stuff. So I can't deny other people their experiences. If somebody has, cured their type 2 diabetes going on a vegan diet, then, I want to understand why is it that worked, because I want to know
Well,
the
I
truth.
think I think what Rhonda was saying about the carnivore diet actually applies to veganism a lot because, well, and again, I'm not no expert or a doctor, and I
Speculation.
just try to look at it logically. But maybe that cancer was just starved out because it didn't,
Get
the
enough.
macronutrients weren't there or whatever wasn't there. Some nutrient that we don't even know exists
Right, right.
wasn't
Yeah.
there. So I think it's a good elimination diet, and I tend to look at plants as medicine more so
Yes,
than
absolutely.
food. and
Yeah.
they could definitely, and I know the benefits of plants as far as medicinal plants because I've used them before, but I tend to agree with you that long-term veganism,
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. I wouldn't recommend carnivory to anybody, to be honest, but I would definitely not eat a vegan diet for any more than, maybe
Yeah.
6 months or so. But that's just me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I totally agree with that. But like I said, I mean, I would never tell somebody who's thriving on a vegan diet to change what they're doing until they start experiencing like problems. Then obviously that's I feel like that's the right moment to kind of step in. But somebody who's thriving, hey, like um, somebody on another Facebook group, somebody posted a picture of these two fruitarians that I don't know their fucking names, but anyway, they looked really happy. They looked happy. They were skinny, like probably a little malnourished, but if they were carnivores, we wouldn't have talked shit about them. We would have said like, "Oh my god, look at them. They're so slender. They're so lean, this and that." But so this person posted, these fruitarians, and then everybody was just trashing them like, "Oh my god, look at them. The girl has like male pattern baldness." And she totally didn't. She just had a big forehead.
yeah.
They were like skinny, but they were like so happy, and I'm like, is anybody else just like happy for them that right now what they're doing, they're happy doing what they're doing right now? Like, it's fine. It's fine for other people to do things that are different than what you're doing, So I kind of want to bring that like that anti-dogma thing to like this carnivore space. Because I think also when you trash opposing views, you actually just create more resistance in them, They get
Right.
more defensive. So if we're truly trying to like promote this as a way of living that is conducive to health and mental health, especially like, we trash vegans all the time because like they're acting, kind of unstable and stuff. But like I've seen the same thing on our end, So
Well,
like,
I don't know if that's why that is. I think vegans get a lot of heat because they try to tell you what to eat, whereas the carnivore, for the most part, doesn't give a shit what anybody eats and just uses uh, some of these thick-looking vegans to try to prove a point. But I
right.
also think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit picking when it comes to, no pun intended, the fruitarians, because even vegans, most vegans or whole food plant-based people
One of them.
think that they think fruitarians are just batty. It's a crazy diet to have. So that's kind of low hanging fruit in my opinion. However, I think the reason why vegans catch so much heat is because they'll call you a murderer and
Oh,
they
that's true.
you
Yeah.
know
I
they're
I
just mean. They're just really mean people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's some nice vegans. Come on, you got to give them that. There's some really nice
Yeah,
vegans.
yeah,
Where you
no, obviously
don't hear
there
about them.
are. Yeah,
Yeah.
those are not the people I'm talking about, but definitely you're right. I wanted to ask you, how did you find out? Because I'm curious. How did
Uh,
you find out about that this diet even exists, the carnivore diet? Like who did you hear about it?
you know what?
Uh,
I stumbled upon years ago. I mean, this was easily 5 years ago when I
oh,
first heard.
that's right. You said your father was doing paleo?
Oh yeah, my dad's paleo. And I want to show my dad like on my YouTube channel at some point. He's 67, 66 or 67 years old, and he has a six pack. My dad is like the healthiest person alive like that I've ever seen. I strive to be like my dad as far as like health, and I'm convinced he's gonna live to like 200. I'm not even kidding. Like, he's gonna live to 200. So my dad's been paleo for a long time, like very high fat paleo. So anyway, well, I heard about carnivory or the zero carb diet several years ago, but I just thought it was madness. Like, and I was paleo, 5 years ago, but I just thought that was like, I was convinced that vegetables are like good for you, um, I the website that I saw was Zero Carb Zen, I think, and I remember one particular person, and that's probably how I ended up on that website, because I was reading his story. I don't know if you've heard of him. His name is Andrew Scarborough.
Yeah, I heard about him on
Primal Health,
Tristan's channel.
maybe.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yes. Yeah. So I read his story, and I forgot how I ended up on that page. It was probably following an interview with Dom D'Agostino, because I know that they've talked a lot. I forgot exactly how I ended up on that blog looking at all those success stories, and I read his story, and I was like, wow, man, this is crazy. Like, I thought like, wow, just being in ketosis is just so healing. Like I thought that's why it was working so well. But I saw like all these other stories of these people who had just eaten zero carbs, just pure meat and organ meats for several years. But I was like, no, there's no need for me to do that. And I just thought it was crazy. I thought it was insane. But I was like, that's for those very severe cases. Like these people clearly can't tolerate plants. So they just have to live without the benefits that plants can provide, because the other alternative is to just be sick and miserable. So that was how I first heard about it. And now recently, oh, you know what? It was actually when I saw Vegetable Police try it.
Right.
That's when I gave it a shot. And I wasn't, like I said, I've been paleo for several years. I've never like gone completely vegan. I've tried going plant based, and I was vegan for a whole 10 days on a meditation retreat. But so I was just following him because I like his content, and I do follow like a lot of vegans. I always try to stay very open minded. So I was following him and saw him go through this experiment. And I was like, man, this is just so bizarre. And I've seen it explode all over the internet, and nobody's dying, nobody's getting scurvy or like developing deficiencies. And I was like, I need to give this a try. Like, I've always been seeking like to optimize whatever it is that I'm doing. And I never thought I'd reach the point, like I said earlier, where I just have like zero complaints about my health, like in just every area,
So you were paleo prior to going carnivore?
I was paleo. Yeah, in general.
Besides meat, what else is included in paleo? No dairy, right?
Dairy is something I have like this huge love-hate thing with, because dairy really triggers my acne. But I go through episodes where I eliminate dairy, and then episodes where I'm eating dairy. So
A1, A2, goat's milk, doesn't matter.
Any type, yeah. I've tested already with goat's cheese and goat's milk, and the only thing I haven't tried with is raw dairy, which I haven't seen that like at Whole Foods, so I have to like go somewhere specific to find that, and I haven't.
Pet food stores.
At what?
Pet food stores sometimes. States where it's illegal, I've heard pet food stores will sell raw milk, and I know it sounds like a little funky or whatever, but it's just a loophole. It's just a legal loophole they go through.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, it's funny. Well, I'd like to talk about the changes I noticed in my pets when I changed their diets, and
Totally.
and the similarities that I found with the changes that we go through. If you don't mind, because it's very interesting.
No, well, I was just gonna say, you started your 30-day challenge 3 months ago, so it must be working. Something must have happened. So I think that's a good segue. Tell us what's happened to your dogs, and obviously you, because that's what we're mostly interested in. But whatever, yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Well, there's similarities that I like to point out. Are just very, very interesting. I've actually had my dogs on a raw meat diet for several years already. I just I didn't know that was like that was a very good diet for us. So as soon as I changed their diet, a couple of weeks in, their fur just got super silky. They started shedding a lot, and then like they had like new fur. I don't know, but it was just super, super silky. And very recently, I noticed that ever since I've changed their diet, like they never get that doggy smell. Like they never smell like dogs. Like they just don't smell like anything.
Do you give them bones too, or just meat?
I do give them bones. Yes, yeah.
It helps to clean their teeth. I think that could be part of it.
Yeah, well, oh, that's right. That makes sense, because that'll affect their whole like digestive tract.
But they also don't have the bacteria to break down the plants, so there could be some rat going on in their guts as well. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, and you know what? Initially, I included some sweet potato in their mix, and a little bit of broccoli and stuff. And I recently got rid of that, and now they stopped like tearing. They used to have like little tears around their eyes. They
wake up with all kinds of boogers in their eyes and stuff.
Kind of, yeah, a little bit. So I got.
So what do they eat exactly? Is it just meat?
Meat, yeah, and I'll give them liver and bones. So the interesting thing the interesting similarities is that when I started doing this, I also felt like I was just growing like new skin. Like my skin just like cleared up, got really shiny. My acne did a lot better, even though I hadn't completely removed dairy. And the other very bizarre thing, so I mentioned that my dogs, they stopped smelling. They stopped. I had to. I didn't have to give them baths anymore. Like I would give them baths whenever I would take them to the dog park and they get muddy,
Yeah.
but I didn't need to bathe them every week like I used to, because they would smell like, they would just smell. Um, and what's very bizarre is like this happened to me very recently. Before I went to Oktoberfest, I noticed that like I didn't have to use deodorant anymore, and it was just very weird. Like, I mean, I tested it with my parents. I was sweaty as hell, and I was like, "Mom, smell. Like, do you smell anything?" And I asked Dad, and they were like, "Nope, nope, there's nothing there." And it's just very bizarre. I was like, "Wow, this happened to my dogs too." It's like crazy. And I think it
No
makes,
toxins coming out of your pores.
yeah, or like no fermentation of like, the carbs in your gut. I don't know what it is. I think that's why we should study like these mechanisms, because it's very interesting, and I'd like to know why and how this works. I'm not willing to wait for the data though, because I'm doing so well.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I thought that was very, very interesting, very bizarre. And I was saying that I think it makes sense from an evolutionary biology perspective that we shouldn't be that stinky, because we would be leaving like a trail of scents, out in the wild, and we could get
For
trashed.
lions to get us. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like speculation. So yeah, that's it. That's all I want to say about my dogs. It's just very weird. They don't smell, and I didn't smell. When I came back from Oktoberfest, I had to start using deodorant again. I was like, okay, very bizarre. I need to test this again.
Huh. So, what other changes are you noticing besides better skin and maybe less funk?
Yes, yeah. Energy throughout the whole day. Very typical, like being ketosis. That's something I was familiar with. The the most rewarding thing has been just truly no burning desire for like carbohydrates, and I've been an addict to carbs. I mean, especially potatoes, and now it's just like this distant memory of my past, like a very sad memory, how much I needed chips and like potatoes. Like I just loved potatoes. And sweet potato fries, like that was just, I needed that, to like feel good. And now it's just like this, even though I'll indulge in like very dark chocolate, and I'll have some fruit, it's not this like need to have it. I don't know if that makes sense. It's more to like indulge the senses, out of like curiosity for like, let me taste this. But it's not like to fill this void in me, this emotional void in me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, I don't know, that's got to be the most life changing thing for me. So just like my relationship with food has completely changed. And I really do thoroughly enjoy every meal that I have, even though it's like, it's plain, so to
Kind of
speak.
the same all the time.
Yeah, yeah. And so right. So I also have, I've had a history of terrible anxiety my whole life, and I went through like a terrible mental crisis when I was 23 years old. I got a slew of diagnoses, and I noticed that diet played a huge part in my anxiety, and that's another reason why I was low carb for so long, because that really helped my anxiety. The blood sugar crashes were
Yeah.
terrible. I would have like a bowl of spaghetti or something, and then take like this terrible nap, and I would wake up very anxious. I guess maybe hypoglycemic, or and I remember in high school, almost every day of like my teenage life, I would always wake up with like terrible depression, and then once I ate, I would just start feeling better. But and my mom to this day, she wakes up like that too. My mom's also kind of like a nervous, anxious kind of person. Um, so anyway, that's being an anxious kind of person. All that stuff. I did yoga. I'm very into meditation, so I look after mental health a lot. And I've noticed that after doing this carnivore thing, I have to put very little effort into feeling well. Like I just always feel well, always. And it's I'm also just more sociable, and this is something that I noticed. Vegetable Police, he's been talking about lately too.
Mm-hmm.
I've always loved people. I love people. I'm such a like people person, but I still always had kind of some like social anxiety. Like I would be hesitant to talk to like a stranger or just say hello, or and now I'm just like super sociable. And I have no anxiety about talking to strangers, and I don't know, it just feels really good to like just feel well all the time and not have to try to feel good.
A lot of people report the same thing. It's
I did.
the
Yeah.
the the feeling good is always the same, but the feeling bad will be like depression, anxiety. For me, it's anger. I just get really aggro if I eat sugar or carbs.
Oh yeah.
But being in ketosis definitely seems to stabilize a lot of people's moods. That's like the number one thing that I hear. What about your joints? Have you ever had any joint issues?
You know what? I did. That was one of the symptoms that I had, like that were kind of autoimmune, and I ended up going to a rheumatologist for it, and he screened me for lupus, I think, or something, and I tested positive for some antibody called anti-nuclear antibodies. But he said that that alone, that just indicates that there's like autoimmune activity in your body, but that antibody alone isn't enough to give you a formal diagnosis for one thing that's like recognized. He says that that has to be positive along with something else to get like a diagnosis for something. And I was like, no, that's fine. I don't want to get diagnosed with anything. No, I don't want to have anything. He told me to come back in 6 months to retest, and I never did that because I just kept like troubleshooting my health and like trying to figure it out myself. That's what I use doctors for. I just want labs and I want to see like things change, but I don't want medication.
Yeah. And whatever you just described sounds very theoretical to me still. It doesn't sound like solid science.
Yes, exactly. There's my dad has this great way of explaining, like, you know, people who and this has always been me until recently. Like I've always been so interested in the details and like, you know, the biomarkers and like the lab work, and as of lately, I've kind of not paid a lot of importance to that because this is something that, you know, like all of these labs and all of these little biomarkers and all that stuff that hasn't been studied in the context of what we're doing.
Right,
And
that's based on sad dieters mostly.
exactly, yes, exactly. And so many genes are like upregulated and turned on and turned off, like when you're in ketosis and when you're doing this, that like, you know, we need a different set of reference ranges, right?
And your ranges, your levels could change daily sometimes, or even by the hour.
Your cholesterol can change, your testosterone can change like throughout the day. Yeah, absolutely. So this is my dad's a programmer. I'm a programmer as well. So in the world of programming, there's like different levels of programming languages. I'll try to explain this in a way that's understandable. So like, you know what binary is, right? Like zeros and ones, you know, machine language. Language above that is called assembly language, and it's basically, just think of it as zeros and ones, right? So like looking at all these biomarkers and all of this like super like nitty gritty stuff, that's like trying to program in like zeros and ones, you know. And in IT, there's like higher level programming languages where like, you know, you read it and it almost looks like English, you know, and you can type out a sentence and it will, you know, it'll like make a lot of changes in your program. That's the easiest way I can explain it. So he used to tell me, like, Cynthia, like, you know, you're tackling your health in like zeros and ones, you know, like just do the right overall things, you know, be higher level, like just, you know, work on your sleep, you know, just make sure you eat right. Don't worry about your labs, you know. And I've definitely adopted that kind of thinking now, because I just feel so good that like I don't give a shit what my labs say, you know. And even if this isn't studied, and let's pretend that this is actually going to take 5 years off my lifespan, or even 10 years. I just
But
feel
you're gonna gain quality probably and trade in quality for
exactly. I'm like, you know what? First of all, I'm not convinced that that's going to happen. But second of all, like if I have to take that, like I totally accept it, man. I just feel so good that like, fuck it, you know. If I have to die when I'm 70, not when I'm 80, like I'm good, man. Like I'm saving so much time grocery shopping. You know, I can sleep less, and you know I'm awake more. Like I'm actually kind of gaining time.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And I think that's the best approach to all this dieting or ways of eating, is just to be as intuitive about it as possible
Yeah,
and just look at yourself. I mean, I'm not saying science should be completely discarded, but so
no,
much of it is corrupted and bought and paid for and poorly done. Where, look,
yes,
if I feel good, then why should I go see a doctor, right? You go
yes,
to the doctor when you
absolutely,
feel like shit. So it's just
totally.
illogical. Like a lot of the times when maybe you're talking to a vegan and you'll tell them, well, I can't digest kale or something, they'll say, well, there's something wrong with you, you got to go see a doctor. And to me it's like, well, maybe I'm just a carnivore. You know what I mean? I already solved the problem. Why do I need to go to the doctor to be able to eat kale, which I don't enjoy in the first place?
Right, right, yeah,
So it's
absolutely. Um, there's
Any
a
any other improvements or changes that you could think of?
I wish I had. Oh, my hair. My hair has grown so much, and that's something that I had struggled with for a while, because on and off, due to stress and maybe like dietary changes that I was playing with, mainly stress, because it always coincided with like heavy stress and anxious episodes. I would just shed like crazy, crazy.
Hmm.
And about 2 years ago, I shed like 60% of my hair in the matter of
Holy
like
shit.
2 months. I was terrified that I was just like gonna be bald. I was about to
Were
pull.
you losing weight at the same time or something?
No, I wasn't. I was doing a ketogenic diet, but I was
Uh-huh.
under incredible amounts of stress
Yeah.
with work. Um, I was having like panic attacks again, and I just couldn't sleep, and I was just I was just very very stressed out. And I started. Oh, I also developed arrhythmia, heart palpitations, which I
Hmm.
ended up. On a Saturday morning, I woke up one day. I thought I was having a heart attack, and I went to the ER because that's when I first felt like these heart palpitations, and I had never felt that
Jeez.
before. I ended up going to a cardiologist to take a look, and they did the ultrasound. They said I was fine. They put me on this like on metoprolol, I think it's called. It's actually a blood pressure medication, but it's also got like anti arrhythmia effects. And I took that for 10 days, and I swear to God, I gained 10 pounds in those 10 days. Like that's unreal, but it happened. And I called the doctor, and I was like, "Dude, what is going on? Like, I gained 10 pounds in a matter under 2 weeks." Yeah, he's like, "Yeah, but did it help your arrhythmia?" And I was like, "Yeah, kind of, but I stopped taking it. I stopped taking it, and I dealt with the heart palpitations for a long time until I read a book called The Salt Fix. Have you heard of
Yeah.
that book?
Yeah.
Oh my God, what an amazing book. I just had to up my salt intake, and I told you I was doing a ketogenic diet, but I had never kind of gotten on board with the increasing of
It
the
was just
sodium.
an electrolyte imbalance.
It was an electrolyte thing, and the stress, definitely, because I mean I would feel my heart palpitations like kick in when I was like going through like a lot of pressure at work, and so so yeah, I addressed the salt issue, and my heart palpitations went away. Um,
It's so crazy. The solution was so simple, but a doctor was just gonna
a pill,
give you drugs.
yeah, yeah, yep.
That's just crazy. Now, seeing as you're sticking to the diet, their advantages must outweigh any disadvantages, if there are any. Are there?
No, not the disadvantage is that it's kind of bizarre to eat out and with a group of people.
Yeah. Socially, it's a little awkward.
Socially, it's definitely a little awkward.
How
Kind
do
of,
people react when you tell them that this is what you're doing? Do they think you're
they,
crazy?
yeah, they just look at me like I'm crazy. Yeah, and one of my best friends, I told her I want to start eating raw meat sometime soon. There's this particular meal that looks so delicious. I don't know why. Like I just really want to try it.
What
Um,
is it?
tartar steak tartar,
Yeah, steak tartare. Yep.
like ground beef with the egg.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that I really want to try that. I don't know why every time I see it on the internet, I start salivating. I'm like, man, these are like some really primal urges. It's like it's so weird. So I want to try that. I actually have some chuck roast thawing right now that I'm going to use for it. If you have any recommendations for how to prepare it,
Well, my stepfather would always do just that raw meat with the yolk, just the yolk, and
spice it or season it.
salt and pepper, just really basic. And sometimes he would eat it with a little bit of vinegar. I don't know if that's
Okay.
something that
Yeah,
you're into, but he
yeah,
would do
yeah,
that.
definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was thinking some olive oil, vinegar, salt, pepper. I saw some people also add mustard. Um, might try doing it like that. I'm very excited.
Just as a little anecdote, the Tartars were one of the biggest kingdoms in the history of the world, and they were absolute beasts, known for eating lots
Oh,
of raw
really?
meat and that type of stuff. Yeah, so I think that's where it comes from culturally.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
Very
they were
interesting.
just terrible, terrible warriors. Very, very vicious people.
Wow, wow.
Good at it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I bet definitely. I'm sure that their diet contributed to their fierceness and aggression. Maybe I don't
I
know.
don't know about aggression, but they were. This is all just who knows how much of it is true or not. But this is just something that I've always heard
Uh-huh.
because my stepdad always ate steak tartare, so I was always kind of curious why you would do that.
Was he a
And
healthy guy? Was he like in good health?
Look, he smoked his entire life. He's always had a stressful job. You
Okay.
know, he's always loved the polycyclic hydrocarbons, like all the burnt stuff. You know, when he did cook meat, he would always want that,
Okay.
and okay, he has high cholesterol, but besides
That,
that, he's never had any health issues. So
yeah,
it's like,
that doesn't matter. In fact, that
and
makes
he's a lifelong smoker. So go figure.
yeah, and that's a big. I have my occasional cigarette when I drink, also. Not something I'm willing to sacrifice at this point. I just feel good, like it's fine.
Gotcha. So
So
what are you eating? Like specifically, what is your like
I
what
have
I eat in a day look like?
what I eat in a day. That depends. I mean, I haven't consistently had like the same kind of what I eat in a days back to back. But I have a lot of bacon. I make liver pate every single week. Sometimes chicken liver, sometimes beef liver. And my favorite way to eat that is to buy like deli ham slices and put the
Mm-hmm.
pate inside and like roll it up. Tastes really
Yep.
good. I like it. Sometimes I'll just eat the pate with a spoon. Um, what else?
What
Ribeye.
about fat?
I add butter to everything. Lately, I've been trying to cut back on dairy, so I've been having ghee
Yep.
and tallow. I've been
Mhm.
having a lot of short ribs lately that I make in my instant pot, and I gather like the tallow that comes out of that, like the fat that rises
Yeah.
to the top after you refrigerate it. I scoop that out, and then I add that to my steaks. Um,
Eggs.
I do have eggs occasionally, not every day. And what else? Let's see. Smoked salmon. I haven't had smoked salmon in a while, but I love smoked salmon, so I have that. I did that a lot in my first 30 days. I had a lot of smoked salmon. What else?
So you're basically zero carb carnivore. No
Yeah,
low carbs.
well, I've been having some fruit
Hmm.
a couple of times a week. Melon, I really like. It's like very hydrating. I've also had a couple of cups of coconut water for the potassium. I feel like it helps helps me go more often.
Arrhythmia.
Well, no, my arrhythmia is taken care of. I mean, very occasionally, sometimes I've had like my heart kind of skip a beat a few times, but it's gone for the most part. I even wrote to the author, the Salt Fix author, James Dinical Antonio, and we exchanged a couple of emails. I was just like, dude, like you have no idea what this book has done for me, because I just had like a slew of other like problems that were just addressed by increasing my salt intake. Um,
Did you
so
used to get Charlie horses at night?
you know what? I'm not sure I know exactly what a Charlie horse is.
That's when your calf just kind of just tenses
Spasm.
up and you can't. It's like a muscle spasm in your calf.
Is it only in your calf? A Charlie horse, that by definition it's only in your calf?
That's what I think, but I'm talking about electrolyte
Well,
deficiency.
I've definitely
That
had
can
like,
happen anywhere, really.
yeah, I've definitely
Yeah.
had like cramps. In the first 30 days, I had first like 3 weeks or so, I had a lot of cramps, and I was playing with like my electrolytes and
Yeah, I only mention that because I used to get Charlie horses when I first started, and then I started adding salt, like you say, and it just
and
went
it
away.
helped.
Yeah, oh, totally.
There's a guy I also follow on YouTube that recently he found, I think, that decreasing his salt intake helped his cramps, because sodium kind of like modulates your other electrolytes. So maybe doing too much salt could also be like a problem, because it can throw off the
Your
sodium.
potassium or something.
Yeah, exactly. So I think his alias on YouTube is Gut Gains. I don't know if you've stumbled across him.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Uh,
He's in the
he's
chat room right now.
what?
He's in the chat right now.
Oh, is he? Oh, hi.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Shout out to Gut Gains.
yeah. So well, as of lately, I don't really have to use that much salt. I just salt my food to taste. Occasionally, I'll have like a glass of water with some salt, but definitely a lot less than I was in the beginning. And yeah, I did get cramps in the beginning for sure. But yeah.
So, are you an athlete? You said you were preparing for a bikini show.
Oh, that was 5 years ago. I never ended up doing it. I got my gut issues were like terrible.
Yeah.
No, I used to play volleyball. I mean, I've always been into like fitness, and I've always worked out a lot. But actually, ever since I started getting those the heart rhythm issues, I developed like a terrible intolerance to exercise. I could exercise for like 10 minutes, and then the heart palpitations would just, and I would feel like super dizzy and like tired. And now I don't have those issues anymore. But I still haven't quite gotten into. Oh, I do yoga. I do a lot of yoga. I started doing yoga every single day, like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Um, but as far as like lifting weights and stuff, I still have like this fear of like hard exercise because I remember how shitty I felt.
Yeah.
Um, but even though I'm fine now, I just have to kind of like,
It's a gut feeling.
yeah, exactly, because it was like this learned, intolerance, like this learned, um, this association to like just feeling shitty when I exercise that I have to like overcome because now I'm fine. So yeah, I'll start exercising sometime again someday.
Gotcha.
Let's see.
So, how was your vacation or whatever it
Oh
was?
man, it was great. It was awesome. I went to the Oktoberfest in Munich. So that was
German beer is probably some of the best beer out there, huh?
yeah. You know what? I didn't feel shitty at all the next day. Like I didn't have a hangover, nothing. And oh,
That's
that's
weird because you're in ketosis, I'm guessing, all the time.
yes, yeah. I must be in ketosis like all day. That is a disadvantage. You asked me a disadvantage, but it's
Hmm.
also an advantage, and I'll explain why. I've developed like a very bad tolerance to alcohol.
Most people
But
do.
yes, I've seen that that's a very common phenomenon in this movement, and also the desire to drink has also like diminished.
True.
Like I do not crave beer or wine or like I never want to have like a glass of whiskey. I used to be like my go to drink, and I'm perfectly and because I'm like less socially anxious. Like I'm perfectly fine going out to a bar with my friend and just having water and just like enjoying being there, socializing without needing to have a drink. So it's
Well, I always say it's because you get this natural high. You no
yes,
longer yearn
exactly.
for other, ways
Yeah,
of getting high.
yes.
Even though it's not the same, but you just feel good.
Feel good, yeah, and it's like anything else just like ruins your high at this point.
Totally, totally.
So yeah, so that's a disadvantage, but it's an advantage too because I just feel good. I don't really want to drink.
Yeah,
You know?
I've never drank much except for college, but I used to smoke quite a bit of pot, and once I went carnivore, like I haven't had it since, and I just don't want to,
Yeah, yeah. Oh my god, I can't smoke pot. It gives me terrible panic. I used to smoke also like periodically, but yeah. Um,
Yeah, it's not for
Thing like
everybody.
it just yeah, it's not, and especially like when you just feel so good, it's like anything else, anything I could consume just like lowers my state of consciousness. Because it just feels so good. Actually, you know what? I take that back. I recently discovered kratom. Do you know what kratom is?
I
Kratom.
do. I do.
Oh, okay. All right. So plants as medicine. It's actually what I was drinking just now. I don't like to build habits out of anything, so this is something that I control. I don't do this every day. But it is nice to like just kind of take the edge off and
You
relax.
buy it online?
Yeah, I
You're
buy
probably buying it from my friend,
really.
actually. Yeah,
Well,
I tried this
food in
like,
mind.
huh?
I no. You're probably thinking of Chris Bell, maybe.
No, I won't say his name just because
Okay.
he's had a lot of issues with the FDA, but
Oh,
he's this guy that basically brought it to US many years ago and he introduced me to it. And he's got a lot of different websites, he's got a lot of different front websites,
I
but
see.
he's basically like the guy. And
Really?
yeah,
Wow. Okay.
and it's great. Kratom is great,
Cool.
but I haven't dabbled in it for a while because I just don't feel the need to. But it's amazing. I know that much. It's amazing, and there's no like negative side effects at all.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. At least I haven't experienced any, but there's like all of these little kava bars popping up all over Florida now because it was legalized here 2 years ago.
Hmm.
And I've got one like 2 miles from my house, and I just like the environment, and I like the coffee house environment, like the lounge environment where there's like people just like studying or talking, and so I spend a lot of time just kind of like people watching or working from. I work from home, so I sometimes go to like little cafes and work from there. Um, and so I've been spending a lot of time at these little kava bars that are happening around here locally, and I've definitely dabbled with that. It's kind of replaced like me going to a bar and like drinking, like every week.
Yeah, it's just
And I
like a
definitely deem
social activity.
yeah, and I definitely deem this kind of like a healthier thing than drinking alcohol.
Hmm. Right
Um,
on.
yeah. So let's see what else have I experienced in carnivore.
So
Uh,
you're sticking to it for the time being, but you are not necessarily committed to it.
No, I think I can see this being a lifelong thing unless something bad happens to me where like,
Right.
some deficiency or something happens. Um, I started reading this PDF called The Stone Age Diet by Walter Vogelton. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's
No.
supposedly actually one of the documents that kind of the paleo movement was based upon.
Uh-huh.
And man, like the stuff that I learned there, I just can't unlearn it. Like the guy, he goes through like the digestive system of a full blown carnivore, which is a dog. He goes through the digestive system of a dog, compares it to humans, compares it to that of a sheep, and you just
It
we're
just
like,
makes sense that we should eat meat, right? It's just
yes,
logical.
yes, yeah. And like ever since reading that PDF, I can't like unlearn what I learned there. I'm like, oh my God, like that's why like we're experiencing all these benefits. Like
Yeah.
this is our species appropriate diet, you know?
Tiny stomach, huge brain. I mean, you can't deal with
Yeah,
plants very well when you have, these, when your brain has such high energy needs and your stomach is tiny. That's why I believe
pretty
vegans run
veg.
into a lot of gut problems because
Uh-huh.
of the volume of stuff
Yeah.
that they put in their stomachs, which were not designed to be able to handle. Yeah, I know what you're saying. I never heard of this PDF, but I've gleaned the same knowledge from
Ending.
various other sources, and it's really just that's what's convinced me because
Yeah.
it's just so logical. It just makes sense, and then you try it, and it feels great, and it's like, okay, I'm waiting for that moment that's going to convince me otherwise, and it's
Yes.
just not happening.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I'll be doing this until that moment happens.
Right.
And I hope it never comes because I just feel fucking amazing. Like
Are you hoping to reintroduce some plants maybe a little bit or not really?
yeah, I mean, like I said, I'll have some plants periodically. Like maybe now when I go to a restaurant and like instead of not having the sides, I might have the sides with my steak. I might do that. But as far as like having it in my home and regularly consuming
Hmm.
vegetables, um, I don't think so. I mean, maybe I don't know. Who knows? Right now, I
Yeah.
just feel good doing what I'm doing, and like I said,
If it ain't broke.
huh?
If it ain't broke.
Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
So for now, no. I'm still somewhat of a fan of plants, and I think that they can be therapeutic
Hmm.
through means of hormesis. But I'm consuming plants in other ways that might give me hormetic stressors, like kratom, maybe or
Gotcha.
teas. I drink a lot of herbal teas. And like I said, I'll have my side periodically when I go out and eat in a restaurant. But as for right now, I don't have any plans of introducing plants regularly, besides fruit here and there.
Yeah, I experiment once in a while, and what usually ends up happening is I'm reminding myself why I don't eat plants.
Yeah, really? What have you tried to introduce?
Like I've reintroduced peanut butter at one point, and in
Oh,
significant
you know what?
quantity.
I'm sorry
Uh-huh.
for leaving that out. I do have some almond butter here and there.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
I react fine. It's totally fine. I don't get any
It
weird.
gave me brain fog. I didn't try almond butter, but peanut butter gave me terrible brain fog. You
Oh,
know,
okay,
I
okay.
find I find that sourdough bread when I don't eat too much of it,
You
only
can.
because of the carbs, but I find that it doesn't hurt me like wheat in general does. Because
Huh?
if I just eat refined flour,
You.
it'll makes me terribly itchy, and it's just no fun.
Okay, okay, interesting. Yeah, I know
But
sourdough like
sourdough is
ways
fine,
for
but
bread.
only like a few slices.
Okay, okay. Yeah. The dose makes the poison.
Well, I'm not trying to get kicked out of ketosis
Yeah,
necessarily, and
yeah, yeah,
they're
no.
like,
Feels so
but
good.
it's a very nutrient rich food, and it fills me up just the
Hmm.
same as meat. So I think there's value in it,
Hmm.
but in moderation. I'll eat some fruit here and there,
Uh-huh.
uh, but like root vegetables or green vegetables, no, that's just not for me.
Yeah.
Any of that.
I haven't
It's
tried yet. I haven't tried yet. I am eager to make like a butternut squash soup and see how that goes.
well, that's a fruit, so you might be able to get away with that.
Squash? Oh yeah,
Squash is a fruit. Yeah.
of course. Yeah. Oh, okay.
So-
Well, I just think of it as like a starch, so I think of it as a
Well, yeah,
sugar. Yeah.
we all think of it as a vegetable, just like tomato, right? We tend to
Yeah.
think of
Right.
it as a vegetable.
Yep.
Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, so no real need or desire to spice up your diet or anything. You're pretty happy with it, how it is. It's working so far, so good.
So far,
Um,
so good.
right on.
Complaints. Yeah. Uh,
Well,
mhm.
I'm basically exhausted all the questions that I had for you, and I like to keep these talks at about an hour or so. So unless you want to add something else, I think I feel pretty good and satisfied with what we accomplished today. And maybe I would like to ask you, if you feel like it, to maybe come back in a few months and give us an update, and just do another chat if you feel like it.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been great. Yeah.
Cool. Well, if you have any final thoughts, shoot.
No, besides just, if you find that something's got a lot of hype and, you're kind of uncertain about whether to try something or not, I mean, it's always just try it yourself, forget all the data. There's so many biases and like everything that we've seen. Just give something a shot yourself and experiment. If you haven't already, I'm pretty sure your viewers are probably also carnivorous, so they've already taken the leap. But if anybody's watching this and they're thinking about trying it, just give it a shot. I One of the main things that has kind of rid me of the fear of like, oh my God, am I going to die of like heart disease or whatever, is like, how can something that is just so conducive to health in so many areas be bad for like one particular area? Something that makes you feel so good and makes you just like radiate health doesn't make any sense that it's something that's going to kill you. So yeah, I guess with that said, if you're watching, haven't given it a shot, do it. And those of you that have been doing this, if you want to follow me on my channel, follow me at the link below and at the Health Experience on Instagram. And I'm hoping to produce more content. That's
Cool.
it.
Now that you're back from your vacation, sweet.
Now I'm back on vacation.
So maybe in a few months we could
Sure.
catch up with Cynthia, see how she's doing, if she has any new thoughts on hormesis or anything like that. But for the time being, thank you very much for coming through. I really appreciate you stopping by and educating everybody a little bit, sharing your experience. I think it's, we could sit there all day, read studies, and pretend like we understand this shit, but there's really nothing like people sharing their experiences and encouraging others to to experiment themselves, because the way we've been told to eat is definitely not working, which is to say the least, I guess. So once again, thank you for coming through. I really appreciate it. Thank all of you. I'd like to thank all of you guys for coming through, and we're gonna call it a day. So take care, everyone. Peace out.